My name is Morgan Tate, and I'm 31 years old. 2 months ago, my boyfriend looked me in the eye across my kitchen table and told me I was suffocating him. He didn't shout. He didn't say it in the middle of a fight when people fling words they don't mean. He said it the way you mention a podcast recommendation or an interesting article you saw. Calm, measured, like he'd practiced in the mirror until it stopped sounding cruel and started sounding reasonable. I just feel pressured all the time, Morgan, Caleb said, setting his fork down like he was closing a deal. You always want to see me, always want to talk in person. I need space. We were sitting in the same two chairs where we'd once stayed up until 2 a.m., trading childhood stories and laughing until my neighbors banged on the wall. My apartment smelled like garlic and tomatoes from the pasta I'd made. A candle flickered between us, throwing warm light on his face as he told me, very calmly, that being my boyfriend felt like having a weight on his chest. I remember watching a bead of condensation slide down his water glass, one droplet, then another racing toward the ring at the bottom. It was easier to focus on that than on the way my heart had suddenly started pounding against my ribs. Pressured, I repeated, trying to keep my voice flat, because I asked if we could plan something for this weekend. It's not just that. Caleb sighed, running a hand through his hair in that way he knew made him look stressed and vulnerable. It's everything. You text me good morning. You check in during the day. You want to see me once or twice a week, minimum. It's a lot. I stared at him. We'd been together for over a year. We met on a dating app, matched over a shared love of road trips and obscure documentaries. Within a few months, we were spending 3 or 4 nights a week together. Friday dinners at his place, Sunday mornings at mine, random Tuesdays when one of us had a bad day, and the other showed up with takeout. Back then, the frequency hadn't seemed like a problem. Back then, he'd called me his favorite person. I thought that's what a relationship was, I said quietly. 2 people. Seeing each other, talking, being in each other's lives. I'm not saying I don't want that, he said quickly. I just need it. Less. Work's been insane, my mom's been calling nonstop, and I feel like I can't breathe. Every time my phone buzzes, I feel this pressure, like I'm failing you if I don't respond fast enough. If you'd asked me a year ago to describe my life, I would have said it was steady. Not glamorous, not tragic. Solid in a way I'd earned through careful choices and boring consistency. I pay my bills on time. I know exactly how much is in my savings account. I color code my calendar. I am not chaotic. Apparently, I was overwhelming. I'm not trying to pressure you, I said. I just want to see you. We used to spend weekends together all the time. Lately, it feels like I have to book you 3 weeks in advance. He winced, like I'd hit something too close to the truth. That's exactly what I mean, he said. You're always trying to schedule us. Sometimes I just need time to myself, to think, to decompress. When you keep asking, I feel cornered. A dozen memories flash through my mind like someone flipping through channels too fast. Me canceling plans with my friends because he said he'd had a rough week and wanted company. Me driving across town at 11 p.m. because he texted, I could really use a hug, and then falling asleep on his couch while he finished one more email. Me waiting for him at a restaurant while he messaged, sorry, running late, 3 times in a row. I had bent over and over again because I loved him, because I thought that's what you do when you finally found a person you can imagine building a life with. I backed off when you said work was crazy, I reminded him. I've hardly asked for anything lately except some time together. Once a week feels like the bare minimum, Caleb. He exhaled sharply and leaned back, chair creaking. From now on, he said, voice firm in a way that startled me, I want to be the one who decides when we see each other. I blinked. What? I need you to stop asking, he said. No more, when are you free? Texts. No more, can we plan something? Just stop. If I want to see you, I'll reach out and we'll make it happen. I need you to respect that. For a second, I honestly thought I'd misheard him. The words felt upside down. So you want me to wait, I said slowly, until you decide you're ready to see me? Yes, he said. Exactly. That way I know I'm choosing it because I want to, not because I feel guilty. I think it'll be better for both of us. Better for both of us. The same way people say ripping off a bandage is better for you, while they're the one doing the ripping. Part of me wanted to argue, to tell him that relationships aren't vending machines where one person controls when connection drops down the chute. Another part of me was just tired. Tired of second-guessing every text, of wondering if he'd cancel again, of trying to read his mood through punctuation and response times. So I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. Okay, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. If that's what you need, I'll wait for you to reach out. Relief washed over his face so quickly it made me nauseous. Thank you, he said. I really appreciate you understanding. This doesn't mean I don't care about you, okay? I just need room to breathe. We finished dinner in a silence that tasted like metal. When he left, he kissed my forehead instead of my mouth and said, "Talk soon," like we were coworkers signing off a Zoom call. That night, I lay in bed staring at the little gray, do not disturb crescent moon on my phone screen, fighting the urge to send him a simple good night. I didn't. I'd promised. The first few days were the worst. My fingers hovered over his name every time something funny happened at work, or I saw a meme he'd like. I kept catching myself composing text in my head. Saw a dog that looks exactly like you when you're annoyed. My neighbor is playing that song you hate again. I miss you. I sent none of them. Day 3, he texted, "Hope your week's going okay." I stared at it for a full minute before replying, "You too." That was it. No follow-up, no "let's grab dinner," just a courtesy check-in with all the depth of a weather report. By day 7, something strange happened. Underneath the ache, there was a thread of lightness. I wasn't constantly checking my phone, waiting for his dots to appear and disappear. I wasn't rearranging my schedule around his maybes. I went to the gym after work, grabbed drinks with a coworker I hadn't seen in months, spent an entire Saturday deep cleaning my apartment while a podcast played in the background. My life, which had started to feel like it orbited around his availability, began to feel like mine again. On day 10, my phone buzzed at 11 p.m. "Miss you," his text said. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering. An older version of me, the Morgan who drove across town without hesitation, would have responded in 3 seconds. I waited an hour. "Miss you too," I finally wrote. Then, after a pause, I could feel in my chest, "Want to plan something for this weekend?" I knew what I was doing. I was testing the rule he'd made, seeing if space still applied when the subject was missing me. His reply came a few minutes later. "I actually have plans this weekend, maybe next week." 3 gray dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. Then nothing. I set my phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. 2 weeks after our agreement, on a Thursday night, my phone rang at 10:47 p.m. "Caleb." I almost let it go to voicemail. Curiosity won. "Hey," I said, trying to sound like I hadn't been counting how many days it had been since he'd last suggested seeing me. "Morgan." His voice was shaky in a way I'd never heard. "Are you home?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "Why?" "Can I come over?" he asked. "Please, I need to talk to you. It's important." Every instinct I had screamed to say no, to tell him he'd made the rules, and this late-night emergency didn't fit into space. But there was something in his tone, raw, frayed at the edges, that made my stomach twist. "Okay," I said, "come over." I watched the clock on my microwave tick forward. 10:51, 10:58, 11:06. I counted every minute, every footstep in the hallway that wasn't his. At 11:10, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Caleb standing there, eyes red-rimmed, shoulders slumped. He looked like someone who'd just crawled out of a wreck. In his hands, he was holding a small cardboard box, white and pastel. The brand name printed in soft letters I recognized instantly from 100 drugstore shelves. A pregnancy test. My stomach dropped so fast I had to grip the doorknob to steady myself. "Caleb," I whispered, "what is that?" He swallowed hard, jaw trembling. "We need to talk," he said, "about something I should have told you weeks ago." The candle from dinner 2 months ago flickered in my memory, the word pressured echoing in the back of my mind. I stepped aside to let him in, knowing with absolute terrifying certainty that whatever he was about to say was going to rearrange the entire shape of my life. I stood there with my hand still on the doorknob, staring at the box like it might start explaining itself. Up close, it was even worse. The pastel branding, the word pregnancy in cheerful letters that felt grotesque in my hallway at 11 at night. "Is that—" My voice trailed off. I couldn't make myself say the word. Caleb swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing hard. "It's positive," he said. "Lila took 3 of them today. They all were." The name dropped into the space between us like a stone. "Lila," I repeated slowly. "As in, your ex, Lila?" He closed his eyes for a second. "Can I just explain, please?" I stepped back, not because I was feeling generous, but because I didn't want my neighbors to hear anything from the hallway. His sneakers thudded dully against the wood floor as he walked in and set the box on my coffee table with shaky fingers, like it was some sacred relic instead of a plastic stick that had blown our lives apart. I stayed standing. He sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles went white. "I've been seeing her," he said finally, staring at the floor. "For a while, a few weeks." "How long is a while?" I asked. My voice sounded wrong in my own ears. Too calm, too level. He exhaled. "About 6 weeks." 6 weeks. My brain did the math faster than he could. 6 weeks of canceled plans. 6 weeks of work is insane and I just need some time alone. 6 weeks since he'd told me he felt suffocated. "So right around when you started needing all that space," I said. He winced. "Yeah." Silence stretched between us, thin and sharp. "Are you in a relationship with her?" I asked. "Or just sleeping with your ex on your nights off from needing space from me?" He flinched like I'd slapped him. "It wasn't like that." "No?" I folded my arms. "Explain it to me then, because from here it looks exactly like that." He scrubbed his hands over his face. "We ran into each other at this networking thing for work. We started talking. It felt easy, familiar. I'd been feeling boxed in with us, and she was just... no expectations, no pressure. It just happened." "There it is," I said softly. "The phrase everyone uses right before the worst part. It just happened." He looked up at me then, eyes red. "I didn't plan this, Morgan. I didn't wake up one day and think, hey, I should blow up my life and hurt the one person who actually shows up for me." "You just fell into bed with your ex while you were still with me," I said. "By accident." "I was confused," he insisted. "I felt like you were always asking for more time, more commitment, more presence, and I didn't know how to say I couldn't give that right now without hurting you. Lila was easy. She let me be. No expectations." My laugh came out short and bitter. "So it's my fault." "That's not what I said." "It's what you imply," I shot back. "You felt pressured because I asked to see my boyfriend once a week. So you went to someone who didn't ask anything of you except your body. Got it." He pressed his lips together, eyes glossy. "She told me today she's pregnant," he said quietly. "She's been feeling sick, tired, off, took a test on her lunch break, then another, then another." I glanced at the box again, my stomach twisting. "And you just grabbed one and brought it here like a show-and-tell prop?" I asked. "Why are you telling me this, Caleb? What exactly do you want from me right now?" He swallowed. "Because I don't know if the baby is mine." The words hung in the air, heavier than anything he'd said yet. I stopped, reset. "What do you mean you don't know if it's yours? Who else could it be?" His gaze dropped back to his hands. "She's been seeing someone else too," he said. "A guy named Ryan. It wasn't serious, according to her, but they've slept together. The timeline's messy." I stared at him, a slow, cold numbness starting at my fingertips and spreading inward. "So let me summarize," I said. "While you were telling me you felt suffocated by my existence, you were sleeping with your ex. Your ex, who was also sleeping with another man. And now she's pregnant and doesn't know if the father is you or him." He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. "When were you going to tell me?" I asked. "If the test had come back negative, would you have said anything at all, or would you have just kept texting me, 'Hope your week's okay,' while you sorted out your secret possible baby with your ex?" "I don't know," he whispered. I panicked. When she called me this morning, I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I couldn't breathe. The only person I could think to talk to was you. Something in my chest snapped. "Of course," I said, "because I'm the responsible one, the steady one, the one you go to when your life catches fire, even if I'm the one you're actively burning." "Morgan, why am I hearing about any of this?" I demanded. "You didn't respect me enough to stay faithful. You didn't respect me enough to tell me you were seeing her. But now that there might be a child involved, suddenly I'm on the distribution list?" His voice cracked. "Because I don't want to lose you." I stared at him, stunned by the audacity. "You don't want to lose me?" I repeated. "Caleb, you've already lost me. You just hadn't bothered to notice yet." He flinched, breathing unsteady. "I'm not asking you to fix this. I needed to tell you the truth, and I needed you to know that if the baby is mine, I can't pretend it doesn't exist. I would have to step up. I'd have to be there." "So this is you. What? Soft launching the idea that if you're a father, I need to adjust my expectations?" I asked. "That my relationship will permanently include your ex and her child?" "I don't know," he said brokenly. "I'm trying to be honest." Honest would have been telling me 6 weeks ago that you were sleeping with Lila, I snapped. Honest would have been saying, I can't be in this relationship and also chase the comfort of my ex. He dragged in a shaky breath, eyes filling. She said something, he murmured. When she called me, she said, if it's mine, she wants it to be mine. Meaning? I asked tightly. Meaning she wants me to be the dad, he said. She thinks Ryan won't stick around. He's not reliable. She said I'm stable, that I'd show up, that I'd do the right thing. Right, I said slowly, because nothing says stable like cheating on your girlfriend and getting your ex pregnant. He closed his eyes, tears finally spilling over. I messed up, he said. I know that. I know I don't deserve anything from you right now, but part of me wants it to be mine. If it is, at least then there's a reason for all of this. It wouldn't just be pointless destruction. I stared at him, feeling a strange, distant kind of pity. Not for his situation, he'd built that himself, but for the way he was scrambling to assign meaning to the wreckage. And where do I fit in exactly in this little redemption arc? I asked. What's my role? Supportive girlfriend who holds your hand while you co-parent with your ex? Bonus mom to a child conceived while you were lying to me? His face crumpled. I'm not asking you to decide that now. Good, I said coldly, because I already did. He blinked. What? I took a breath, steadying my voice. I'm not doing this, I said. I'm not staying in a relationship where I'm only truly visible to you when your life catches fire. I'm not waiting around to see if DNA binds you to someone else while you keep me on standby as your emotional insurance policy. Morgan, please. You told me I was suffocating you, I cut in. So I backed off. I respected your space. And in that space, you chose to fill it with someone else. That wasn't an accident. That was a decision. Several decisions, actually. He stood up, reaching for me, like touch could rewind the last 20 minutes. Don't throw us away, he begged. We've built so much. We can figure this out. We can go to therapy. We can... I stepped back out of his reach. You threw it away, I said quietly. You just waited to tell me until it became a medical emergency. His shoulders sagged. What am I supposed to do? Tell Lila the truth, I said. Tell Ryan the truth. Get a paternity test. Take responsibility for the child if it's yours. He swallowed. And you? I'm not your problem to solve, I said. Or your safety net to fall back on if the test says the baby isn't yours. He stared at me, understanding dawning slowly, like it had to fight its way through layers of denial. You're ending this, he whispered. Just like that. There's nothing just like that about it, I said. You ended it over the last 6 weeks, one lie and one canceled plan at a time. I'm just acknowledging what's already true. His eyes were shining, his voice small. What if the baby isn't mine? He asked. Don't you at least want to see how things go? There it was, the real ask. Not right now, but later. Not stay with me while I'm in crisis, but keep yourself emotionally available in case I come out the other side free and looking for comfort. I felt strangely calm. Of course I want to know the result, I said. I'm human, I'm curious, but wanting to know isn't the same as wanting to sign up for this. His jaw clenched. So that's it? That's it, I said. You need to leave. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me, like I was supposed to crumble, to cry, to cling. Please, he tried one more time, voice cracking. Don't do this. Don't just kick me out. I opened the front door. You walked out first, I said softly. I'm just making it official. For a moment, I thought he might refuse to go, that he'd dig his heels in and force a scene. Instead, he looked at the pregnancy test box on the coffee table, then back at me, with a pain I might have once moved heaven and earth to soothe. He picked up the box with shaking hands, walked past me, and stepped into the hallway. Morgan, he said, turning back, eyes wet. I'm sorry. I know, I said. I believe you. I just don't care enough for it to change anything. He flinched like I'd hit him, then nodded once and walked away. I closed the door behind him and leaned my forehead against the cool wood, listening to his footsteps fade down the hall. My apartment was so quiet it roared. The ghosts of our early days, the laughter, the shared meals, the easy banter, flashed through my mind like scenes from someone else's life. I slid down until I was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, staring at the space where he'd just been. Somewhere across town, an ex-girlfriend was clutching her own box with its plastic verdict, wondering what kind of future she'd just stepped into. And me? I was sitting on the other side of a closed door, realizing that the version of my life where Caleb was my safe, steady person had been a fantasy for much longer than I wanted to admit. I didn't cry. I just sat there, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant traffic, and understood, maybe for the first time, that space had never really been about breathing room. It had been about making room for someone else. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was crying, my body stayed stubbornly dry-eyed, but because my mind wouldn't settle. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, the faint glow from the streetlights cutting pale stripes across my bedroom. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the pastel box on my coffee table. I saw Caleb's face when he said he didn't know if the baby was his. Around 5 a.m., exhaustion finally dragged me under, but not for long. I woke again at 7:12, adrenaline already pulsing. I called my manager and said I wasn't feeling well. My voice was steady, which somehow made it worse. I spent the morning cleaning. Not the peaceful, meditative kind. This was frantic, compulsive, like if I scrubbed hard enough, I could erase the last 6 weeks from the walls. I wiped down the counters twice, vacuumed the same spot of carpet 3 times, laundered sheets that weren't dirty. By noon, my apartment looked like a staged rental, sterile, impersonal. Nothing at all like the place where I'd laughed with Caleb on Sundays over pancakes, or where I'd fallen asleep on his chest watching documentaries we never finished. That was the thing I kept circling back to, how real it had felt, how real I'd believed it was. My phone buzzed on the counter. Caleb. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then picked it up. Caleb, can we talk, please? I locked my phone and set it face down. Let him sit with silence for once. An hour later, another buzz. Caleb, I told Lila. She wants to meet. She wants us to talk together. I read it twice, disbelief curdling into a humorless laugh. He wanted me to meet her. The woman he'd cheated with. The woman who might be carrying his child. Absolutely not. I walked into my bedroom, set the phone on my nightstand, and left it there. If it wanted to buzz itself into oblivion, that wasn't my problem. I showered, changed into clothes that didn't feel like they hugged my skin too tightly, and forced myself outside. I walked for an hour with no destination, just the need to move, to keep from drowning in stillness. When I finally returned home, the phone had 3 more unread messages. I didn't open them, not until the next morning. And even then, I only did it because the number was unfamiliar. Unknown. Morgan? This is Lila. I think we should talk. My stomach dropped. So Caleb had given her my number. Of course he had. Why wouldn't he? I was his responsible person, his emotional janitor, his crisis manager. Now, apparently, his ex's support line. I tossed the phone onto my couch like it had bitten me. 10 minutes later, it buzzed again. Lila, I'm not trying to fight. I feel like we deserve to hear each other's side. Caleb said you might want clarity too. Clarity. That word hit something raw. Because clarity was the one thing I did want. Not for a relationship reconciliation, I had no desire to rewind, but for myself. For the part of me that still wanted to understand how this had happened in slow motion while I was right there, thinking everything was fine. I typed out 6 responses before deleting them. Finally, I settled on, me, we can talk, neutral place, public, daytime. She replied almost immediately. Lila, there's a cafe on Grand, tomorrow at 2? I typed okay and sent it before I could talk myself out of it. The next afternoon, I walked into the cafe 5 minutes early. The air smelled like espresso and warm pastries. People talked quietly around me, unaware that 2 women were about to sit down and sift through the wreckage of a man who'd been lying to both of us. Lila arrived late, 7 minutes to be exact. She walked in wearing a soft sweater and leggings, her hair in a loose bun. She was pretty in a fragile sort of way. The kind of person who always looked like she was as one hard gust of wind away from breaking. She spotted me and raised a hesitant hand. Hi, she said as she approached. Her voice was softer than I expected. Hi, I replied, gesturing to the seat across from me. She sat, fidgeting with the cardboard sleeve on her cup. The silence stretched until she inhaled sharply. I'm sorry, she said. For a beat, I couldn't respond. Apologies in situations like this were always landmines. Too early, too vague, and I'd feel insulted. Too emotional, and I'd feel manipulated. For what exactly, I asked. For all of it, she said, eyes glistening. I didn't know. About you, I mean. Not at first. My eyebrow lifted. Not at first? She nodded miserably. When Caleb and I started talking again, he said you 2 were basically done. That you were pulling away, that he felt smothered, that he needed space to figure out what he wanted. A bitter laugh escaped me. Of course he did. Lila winced. I'm not trying to defend him. I believed him. We'd dated before, years ago. There were still feelings. It felt familiar, and he made it sound like you were already half out of the relationship. I sat back, absorbing that. And when did you find out he was lying? I asked. Her eyes dropped to the table. Last week, when I bought the pregnancy tests. He panicked. He blurted everything out. Everything? Well, enough, she swallowed. He told me he'd messed up, that he'd hurt you, that he didn't know what to do. I looked at her, trying to reconcile this trembling woman with the villain I'd imagined in my head. So you've been seeing someone else too, I said. She nodded, cheeks flushing. Ryan, it wasn't serious, we weren't exclusive, but yeah, that's why I don't know who the father is. And you want the baby, I said quietly. Tears filled her eyes. I think so. I didn't expect this. I wasn't ready for any of it. But when I saw those tests, something inside me just shifted. She took a shaky breath. But I need to know, she whispered. I need to know whose baby this is before I can even begin to imagine the rest of my life. I nodded slowly. And Caleb? I asked. She hesitated. He said he'll step up if it's his. He wants to try, if it is. Of course he did. He wanted redemption. A narrative that made him the good guy rather than the man who detonated 2 relationships in the name of space. And what do you want from me? I asked. She met my eyes for the first time. I want to understand what happened, she said, between you two. Because I don't want to keep lying to myself about who he is. And I don't want to build a life, alone or with anyone else, based on half-truths. I studied her for a long moment. She wasn't my enemy. She wasn't the architect of the deception. She was just another person who'd been fed a curated version of Caleb Rivers. We were fine, I said finally. At least I thought we were. Then he started pulling away, canceling plans, choosing silence over communication. I thought it was stress. I thought it was temporary. I didn't know he was using my patience as cover. Lila's face crumpled. He told me you were too much. My jaw tightened. And he told me you were effortless, I said. No expectations, no pressure. She blinked hard, like that's a compliment. Exactly, I said. Effortless means he doesn't have to show up. We sat there, 2 strangers connected by the same betrayal, the same man who'd splintered his loyalty and handed us each a piece of the broken thing. After a long moment, Lila wiped her eyes. I'm getting an early prenatal paternity test. They can do it as soon as next week. I nodded. Good, you deserve clarity. She hesitated again. If it's not his, what will you do? A shard of something sharp twisted in my chest. Not pain, just truth. I won't go back, I said. Not to someone who calls my presence pressure. Not to someone who treats honesty like an optional setting. She nodded slowly, relief and sadness mingling in her expression. We talked for almost an hour, not as rivals, not as enemies. As 2 women navigating the fallout of one man's avoidance, fear, and selfishness. When Lila stood to leave, she placed a hand on her abdomen without even noticing. I watched her walk out of the cafe, swallowed by sunlight and traffic. And for the first time since the night Caleb showed up at my door, I felt something other than anger or numbness. I felt a shift, a quiet internal click. The beginning of letting go. Nearly 3 weeks passed after my meeting with Lila. 3 weeks of silence punctuated by the occasional text from Caleb, most of which I didn't open. 3 weeks of waking up with a strange duality inside me. Part of me felt lighter than I had in months, and another part felt hollow, like someone had carved out the center of my routines and left the edges intact. I kept moving. Work, gym, laundry, grocery shopping, meal prepping. Life in its most maintenance mode form. But it felt different now, like a life reassembling itself around a missing shape I no longer wanted back. One evening, my friend Noah came over with takeout and a bottle of wine. He didn't knock. He used the spare key I'd given him 2 years ago, back when we first became close enough to trust each other with emergencies and apartment plants. I brought Thai food, he announced, kicking off his shoes. And before you ask, yes, I got the mango sticky rice because you always pretend you don't want dessert and then eat half of mine. I let out a breath that might have been a laugh. Terrible accusation, completely unfounded. Sure, he said, hanging his jacket. Anyway, how's my favorite emotionally shell-shocked friend? I shot him a look. You're not helping. I'm aware. He grinned and unpacked the food. Sit, eat, be nourished. You're one missed meal away from making questionable decisions like unblocking Caleb. I sat. We ate. We talked about work gossip and office politics. We argued about the best character in a show we were both watching. It was normal. It was easy. At some point, though, the conversation drifted, inevitably, to the thing we weren't talking about. How long has it been now? Noah asked gently. 20 days, I said before I could stop myself. He whistled softly. Still no word on the test? I shook my head. Lila said it would take anywhere from 10 days to 3 weeks, so it could be any time. And Caleb? Texted me twice today, I said. I didn't read them. Good. Noah nodded firmly. Let him sit in the discomfort he created. I picked at a loose thread on my napkin. It's weird. I don't want to get back together with him. I know that. But I still want to know. I want the result. That's normal, he said. Closure is a powerful drug. I looked down. Does wanting to know make me pathetic? No, he said immediately. It makes you human. You invested in something real. He didn't. The least the universe owes you is clarity. I swallowed. What if it is his? Then that's his life, Noah said, not yours. And if it's not? He gave me a long look. Still not your life. His voice was calm, certain, grounded. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until my eyes stung. He leaned back. When people show you they can only handle love in small, self-centered doses, believe them. Caleb isn't built for the version of commitment you offered. That has nothing to do with your worth. I nodded, trying to absorb it. Noah stayed until midnight, and when he left, he hugged me tighter than usual. You're doing better than you think, he murmured. I wasn't sure if he was right, but I wanted him to be. The paternity test result came on a Tuesday. I was walking to my car after work, juggling my bag, keys, and a half-empty water bottle, when my phone buzzed with a notification. Caleb, can you please read this? It's important. I stopped in the parking lot, heart thudding. My thumb hovered. Then I opened the message thread for the first time in days. Beneath several unread texts, the newest one sat alone, stark and final. The baby isn't mine. 3 words. Just 3. Simple. Clean. Clinical. But the impact wasn't. A rush of something hot and cold surged through me. Relief so overwhelming it made my knees weak, followed by grief I couldn't quite name, followed by a quiet, aching release. I stood between 2 parked cars, breath fogging in the evening air, staring at the message. It wasn't his. He wasn't tied to her. He wasn't becoming a father. There would be no co-parenting, no decades of shared holidays or emergency calls or complicated boundaries. And there would be no narrative for him to cling to. No, maybe this happened for a reason. No moral redemption arc neatly tied with biology. He had ruined our relationship for nothing but the thrill of avoidance and nostalgia. My chest tightened, not with pain, but with clarity. My phone buzzed again. Caleb, can we talk now that we know? Now that we know. As if I'd been part of a team waiting for results. As if the outcome created a blank slate rather than exposing the rot already there. I typed back, me. No, I'm glad you know the truth. That's all. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, returned. Caleb, please. Just one conversation, one chance. I blocked him before he finished. Not out of anger, out of certainty. The kind of certainty that settles like sediment after months of turbulence. Quiet, heavy, undeniable. A week later, through a mutual acquaintance who remained annoyingly neutral throughout all this, I learned that Caleb and Lila had tried to see where things could go after the results came back. It lasted 11 days. Then it imploded. Apparently, Caleb wanted the fantasy of being needed without the responsibility. Lila wanted stability without the conditional affection. Neither got what they wanted. She decided to keep the baby and raise it on her own. Ryan, the actual father, was supportive but overwhelmed, whatever that meant. I felt an unexpected softness for her, not pity. She didn't need that, just understanding. A quiet recognition that she had been caught in a storm she didn't fully see coming. But that wasn't my story anymore. As for me, I started therapy a week after the test results. The first session felt awkward, like stepping into a new pair of shoes. The second felt like taking a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. My therapist, a woman named Dr. Miles with warm eyes and a sharper brain than Caleb ever deserved me using on him, said something during session 3 that stuck with me. People who fear disappointing others often project that fear as pressure. They rewrite the dynamic to make themselves the victim of expectations no one actually placed on them. I sat with that for days. Caleb wasn't suffocated. He was scared. And instead of owning that, he built a narrative where my presence became the problem. That truth stung, but it also freed something inside me. Now? I'm not dating, I'm not rushing, I'm not manifesting a better relationship or journaling my way into a new love story. I'm just living. Some mornings I feel lighter. Some nights I'm still angry. Some afternoons I'm peacefully indifferent. That's healing, not linear, not graceful, but honest. What I know now, with the kind of certainty that only comes after losing something you never fully had, is this. I will never again settle for being someone's safe option. I will never again mistake someone's emotional absence for depth. I will never again ignore the small alarms in my gut just because someone swears they care. And I will never, ever stay in a relationship where my presence is treated like pressure and my love like obligation. The worst night of my relationship began with a knock on my door and a pregnancy test in someone else's hands. It ended with me reclaiming my life.